Is it recording? Yes. Hi, my name is Capricia Singleton, and I'm in the social policy class for the Master of Social Work program at Jackson State University. This is my final presentation for the term, and my topic is teenage pregnancy in foster youth. This is an analysis of services and a proposal of a new policy. So I first wanted to talk about why I picked this topic. I really enjoyed doing this assignment because teenage pregnancy is something I've always enjoyed looking at. During undergrad, I did work with the foster care department for 2 years in Los Angeles through KidSave. It's an organization that works to find forever families for older foster youth, ages 8 and above. And so this got me really interested in the foster youth. But also, I have a strong passion for teenage pregnancy. My family is a very young family and has kind of been stricken with teenage pregnancy, to say the least. And so, with both my care and my love for foster care and teenage pregnancy, I also have a love for public health, which is what my undergraduate degree is in. I have a BA in public health and I have a BS in human development. So, let's get started. So, first is just an overview of teenage pregnancy. So, teenage pregnancy is a huge problem in America. In fact, we're one of the most leading nations with this public health issue, and it costs us about $10.9 billion in 2008. But just $2.8 billion was from foster care pregnancies alone. So, as I mentioned, teenage pregnancy and foster youth has cost America $2.8 billion in 2008. This is because foster youth are 2 times more likely to become pregnant than their counterparts who are not in foster care. And also, the statistics show that with 37% of foster youth involved in care, they get pregnant by age 15, and 50% of the males who are aging out are reported getting someone pregnant. So for slide number 4, I wrote down the motivating factors for foster youth in care to become pregnant. This was a study done by a researcher by the last name Moore in 2012. And the quote here says, "First, status as a parent seems synonymous with being an adult. Second, participants noted that this adult role required them to improve their current life situation. The purpose drawn from this relationship that increased their personal value is part of what makes this process unique among those aging out of foster care." So, learning this from Moore's research shows us that when we address teenage pregnancy and foster youth, we have to address it very differently than that with the broader audience, because many times people talk about education issues or lack of education, and also lack of access to resources such as contraception and other birth control methods. But with foster youth, there's more of an emotional component. So, when a foster youth does become pregnant, they have 3 options. They can raise a child, give the child up for adoption, or they can have an abortion. And then to make the decision, the youth has to have the following people to help her: the foster parents, who are the people they are living with. This could also be a group home advisor. Their biological parents, if they are around or accessible in any way. And then also state workers such as a social worker or a caseworker. Current legislation and policies that do apply to these youth who are in care include the Parental Notification Act, which I'll discuss later, judicial bypass method, coverage offered by Medicare that is provided by the state's welfare department, and also general teenage prevention programs promoted by the U.S. Department of Health and also state departments of health. So the Parental Notification Act is a law that requires young women to obtain consent from their parents if they choose to have an abortion. In Mississippi, the minor must get consent from both of their biological parents if they are alive. Only exceptions are made if the parents are divorced or living separately, or, of course, like I mentioned, if the parent is dead. This is really hard for people who are in care because, first off, they may not have access to their biological parents, and yet they're still being asked to get notification or consent from their biological parents to get an abortion. So this may prolong the girl being able to get an abortion if this is what she sees fit to do, and she's forced to continue her pregnancy so far. So from there, if they're not able to obtain parental notification, I already mentioned this, I'm sorry. This is, again, the Parental Notification Act. Many states have the law that require them to notify their parents, but as I mentioned, in foster youth, it's hard because they don't always have access to their parents. And if they're not able to contact their parents, they do have the option of doing a judicial bypass method. And this is a way to go around the legal system that allows a minor to obtain an abortion without the consent of their parents. They don't have to notify them, and they don't have to be told, yes, you're allowed to have this. But this does take time. It is a court procedure, and it requires the youth to kind of put themselves out there. And this may be a problem for youth because they may not want to disclose to other people, and they may also not know about the judicial bypass method. So this leaves us with the child still having their child and moving forward to needing medical care, which is provided by the Medicare, which is a state in every state. Youth who are in care are applicable for receiving Medicare services. This takes care of everything, honestly: prenatal, WIC, SNAP, things that really do help them get along. And then there are teenage prevention programs from national and state level administrations. The Office of Adolescent Health Teen Pregnancy Prevention Program is a national evidence based program that funds diverse organizations working to prevent teenage pregnancy across the US. And these programs have been overly successful in reducing the rate of teenage pregnancy, broadly speaking, but not so much in teenagers who are in foster care. This could be due to the difference in reasoning for getting pregnant. As I mentioned, that these programs are not really productive for foster youth. Dr. Price, another researcher, conducted research to delve further into the issue, and she found the following that I'll read directly here from the slide. First, these programs assume that young women would not become pregnant if they were more educated about methods to prevent pregnancy. Second, they presume that these pregnancies are unwanted or unintentional, thus ignoring the function and capacity for healing that parenting may serve in the lives of emerging adults with a history of foster care, particularly as they enter the transitional stage of life. So, again, what Dr. Price here is saying is that foster youth who become pregnant usually do it for more of an emotional reason. It's seeking that purpose and finally having a purpose in life and having a bond that isn't questionable. You have to think about kids who are in foster care are constantly put in situations where they are allowed to make relationships, but nothing feels completely permanent. They don't have anyone who's promised to them, any blood relatives. And if they have a child, this is their chance to say, this is my relationship with my child, and it cannot become in question because it is their family. So the reason I am proposing a new policy first is the state and federal policies as they stand aren't supportive of youth who are explicitly in care. They discuss a lot about teenagers who are transitioning out of care with a child, but they don't really address exclusively those ladies who are in care when they do become pregnant and how they are to survive in care with their newborn child. So policies do need to be created to fill this need and advocate for this population of teenage mothers. Another reason is that moving forward, pregnancy prevention programs should work to create a specific component that focuses differently on foster youth and utilizes research findings on teenage pregnancy. So we really do need an evidence-based program specifically made for foster youth who are pregnant or might become pregnant. So proposing a new policy. The purpose of this policy is to meet the needs of all foster youth, not just those who are pregnant, not just those who have children, and not just those who may be considered explicitly at risk for teenage pregnancy, but all foster youth because they are all at risk. To do this, we have to provide prevention methods in order to actively work to decrease teenage pregnancy in this population. We must also acknowledge that there are youth who are in care parenting their child and find ways to support them in that population. And lastly, we do need to continue to prepare those who are transitioning out of care on how to live a successful life with their dependent. So first phase is the prevention phase. Here I wrote that the purpose of this phase is a proactive and targeted program to decrease the rate of teenage pregnancy in foster care. And you'll see the required resources here include things like continuing the education component, increasing access to birth control, but also something that's different from the normal programs is the program targeted at creating a mentor-mentee relationship so that the kids can have a stronger bond with someone who they might talk to when they are questioning or thinking about getting pregnant. Training for caregivers on how to initiate a sex-related conversation, and caretakers could be the group home administrators, foster care parents, social workers, just anyone who has interactions with these youth. And then lastly, counseling for the foster youth so that they are able to have an outlet and to discuss their needs for relationships. To see the success of this program, we would see things such as decreased pregnancy rate, increased awareness of teenage pregnancy as a health concern in foster care, and stronger emotional bonds for adults and foster youth together. The next phase is the support phase, which is the creation dissemination of resources created to support and protect youth who are in care who have dependents. So this is the part that I feel is greatly needed right now and is really missing from current legislation. So this includes things such as rules pertaining to placement of teenage parents in care. So Marisol Harmon is a girl who went on YouTube and explains about her experience having a child while in care. She explains that she was often bounced around, not only due to her behavior, but also to having a child. And I feel that we need to be able to provide more stability for these people and be able to find a way to not allow other people to bounce them around in care. Also, providing a supervised independent living option for parenting teenagers in care. So, this way they can live one on one with their child, but also still under the supervision of someone else. This could look like a group home for teenage mothers with their children. Parenting classes for these youth to increase the health of the infant, and also classes on how to react and move forward if a youth becomes pregnant. These classes would be for the social worker, caretakers. These conversations could also happen when we're educating them on how to have those sex conversations with the youth. And lastly, we need to come up with some non traditional educational pathways to support the scheduling needs of these parents. Because as a teenage parent, they still need to probably financially support their children and come up with ways to be a dependent and also an independent at the same time. So having a non traditional education pathway could seriously help them. If this phase of my policy is successful, we'll see increased living stability for parents who are in foster care. We'll see increased education support networks for foster youth. We'll have higher health levels for the dependents, for the infants, and we'll also have higher rates of school completion for the teenage mothers. The last phase is the preparation phase, which is kind of already integrated into the current policies, but this is the creation dissemination of resources to prepare youth to live outside of care. I'm proposing that, like in some states such as California, we are moving the aging out age to 21. So that way these youth spend a few extra years in care and have time to get on their feet, learn about budgeting, and how to live out on their own. But also provide transitional housing for youth, assist them with job search and placement assistance, financial literacy counseling, and also providing them a list of emergency contacts, places to go when things happen. In a common upbringing, many youth don't let go of home for several years after leaving home. They often call home to feel like how to do something. Just think about it. When you were in college, did you call home to check, like, Mom, how do I make this? Or how do I wash my clothes? These are things that are missing for these youth who may need extra assistance on calling, my baby is sick, what do I do? And I feel like that's really important to have. So it provides them with a sense of support, not leaving them alone in the world. This will decrease the rate of homelessness in youth who age out of care, decrease the poverty rate because we're helping them find jobs, and also creating a bond to those human resources who can help them if they're ever in need. Some ethical concerns or reasons why we need to do this. First is that all social workers are called to be of service to anyone who is experiencing a disservice. So that covers both of the standards on here. So we are to be of service to all people who are at risk. And then also we are to challenge all social injustices and to provide a sense of social justice. Next is dignity and worth of a person. So in order to ensure the dignity and worth of a teenage mother, we have to adequately prepare them for the real world. And then also the importance of human relationships. We have to completely embrace these youth as parents because they are. And we have to acknowledge that their relationship with their child is a permanent bond that's not in question. Lastly, integrity and competence. A social worker can only do what they know how to do. We have to be completely prepared with a list of resources to outsource to these kids and people who can help them because the reality is one person won't know it all, not even one company will. So in conclusion, a higher need for transparency on resources and policies are needed to be created for the specifically targeted group of foster youth. And also the proposed policy in this paper is multifold as it has prevention, supportive, and preparing components. Each component is essential to meet the needs of the youth who are in care and at risk, those who are pregnant while in care, and those who are aging out of foster care. Here I have listed my references that I used in my paper and also throughout my PowerPoint. Again, my name is Capricia Singleton, and this presentation has been all about foster care and youth who are pregnant while in care. Thank you so much for listening.